Greetings everybody, and welcome to another update of my port of Super Sprint from the arcade to the Commodore Amiga. And this one is update number 8. So yeah, moving on. So 11th week now in doing the game, so got some decent progress up until now. So we left it last week where I was going to work on a lot more on the collision side of things, mainly on the sprites. So that's what I'm going to touch on. Had a bit of time to work over the last couple of nights, mainly last night really, on getting quite a bit of the stuff done. But I try to do like about an hour a night of just so that it keeps my brain ticking over this sort of stuff. So I'll show you how we've got to, and I'm then going to. I asked the question about, do you enjoy the technical side of things, or do you not enjoy the technical side of things? So the only response I got back was that a couple of people like the technical stuff. So I'll touch into that in a bit more detail, and I'll show you how probably the sprite engine works, I guess. And yeah, I'll take it from there. So what have we got to do now? So let's take a look. So if we assemble things. Do have an annoying bug which randomly crashes at this point here, and I have not been able to get to the bottom of it, and it's something to do with when it reads this first file, and it is driving me a bit potty. No idea what's the matter with it up to this point, but sometimes it can just not crash at all. There you go, doing exactly the same thing. Weird bug. So just to explain, the last update I had all of these sprites implemented in the game. I think I had the cones implemented as well, but I might cover that. We've got the cars working, so that's me using the keyboard to control the car. If I grab my Competition Pro, which is down here, I should be able to control the red car. There we go. So yeah, red car's working fine. And then on my Sega pad, which I've got here, we've got the blue car, which is the main car I do me testing with. So I think I showed last time that I can crash into the cones. I think I could collect the spanner as well, so I'll show that. But what I've done is I've put these. I don't think I showed last time that I was animating these things, this extra stuff here. These brick wall type stuff, and these little bollards which I've put in the game as well. So what I wanted to cover really for this update was that I've put in the little puffs of smoke when the car hits the sides, and it is not perfect yet. You will see this crash probably multiple times when I'm doing this stream, but as you can see, it is pretty. When I crash into it, the thing I've got happening is that it is hitting the wall and then bouncing back if you hit it dead on. If you hit it at an angle, or at a bit of an angle, you'll see it rebound off. So I'll try and get it to do that. So that's a decent angle there. So there you see it rebounded off. The other thing I've put in is the collision detection on these little animated sprites here. And these ones, so when the sprites are down, I can drive over them, but when they're up, I should get a collision. So I crashed. There you go. I've got a nasty collision there. And as you're seeing, the car did something which is kind of go through the barrier completely. Now I know why that's happening. It's because I haven't actually completed the track codes in the game, which I'm going to touch on in a minute. And tell you how that's working. But you can see I've got some collisions going on there, and I can whack into the sides, these particular two sides here. So I can go around, collect the 100 points. I can collect the spanner as well. I think I can. Now this is working as well, but very kind of briefly. I'll just wait until it's open, then I should be able to go through. No, I can't. Right, so we've got a bit of an issue with that, which I need to cover. But ideally, what this should do is just react and just not allow the car through at all. but this was working. There you go. So that's what I'm expecting to happen. So go into the wall, and I should. Let's try that again. Yeah, I did see it was a bit buggy for the minute. So yeah, I'm kind of rebounding off that, but I can go over it. So that is actually working, and I can hit into that. That's fine. So yeah, so in a very loose sense of the word, the collisions are working. I'm not doing anything with the oil slick and the mud yet. And I haven't done anything with the little tornado thing that's going around. But apart from that, you know, I've got the main part of the collision stuff working. So I'm going to touch on a little bit now on how that's actually working. So if I bring up tile D, which is over here, I'll just fetch it on the screen. And what I have implemented, the only kind of collision code I've implemented is these number 5s here. So whenever the car's hitting a number 5, it is actually working and rebounding the car. Now, through kind of trial and error, I've had to change all of these codes in the actual game. I'll show you what it looks like in a second, to all 5s, and that is just to get the test, really some testing working, because I was seeing a lot of crashes and things like that happening when I was trying to do it, and I was getting, you know, I was jumping into areas of memory where it shouldn't have been. So I'll just the thing to take on this is that the number 5 is the one that's actually implemented. Now if I overlay the collision map as well, so what's happening is that when the car is going around here, whenever it goes outside of this collision map, if it ever steps outside of there, what it does is the front of the car's reading the code that's underneath there. So if it hits 5, then the code looks up in the table and it tells the car to do something. It'll say, right, what car was the angle traveling at? Right, then basically do something. So in the case if it's going at this angle here, maybe he's you know, I'm trying to think what degree that would be. You know, 300 degrees or something. You know, if it's going that angle there, you know, it's going to rebound off and ricochet off. But the problem is I've got to implement other track codes as well. So I've essentially got the track codes working if the car's going like west and east, but I also need to implement the track codes going north and south, and probably also, you know, the ones in between. So I'll just show you how I've got that implemented in the code. And if we go into, where is it? Cars.dat. So what can happen is if it gets a 5, so if the front of the car reads a 5 in the code, what it'll do is it'll jump down here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's reading and jumping to that collision table here. So if we go down, and what this is doing is it's saying, right, for each frame in the car, we're going to react to it. So I'm just going to show what I mean. So if I fire up the angles thing that I had previously. I didn't mean to do that. Let's cancel that. All right. Bring up open recent angles. So right. So if the frame of the car, which goes around from 0 through to 30, so I guess it starts there and goes all the way around to 30. So what it does is that when it reads the track code, it's on frame number 1, it'll look up frame number 1 here, and what it's saying is it will reverse the car and go to angle 50. So it's saying, right, frame number 1, which is this one here, just make this a bit bigger. Frame number 1, which is this one here, and what it'll do is it'll rebound the car back to 50, this angle here, and it does that for each for each one. The only difference is that I have a different reaction based on the frame. So if it's like a dead hit head on, it will basically reverse the car rather than ricochet off. If it's hit at an angle, it will ricochet off, and that's what these differences are here. So we've got reverse and rebound. That's what the REV and REB stand for. And also what happens is if you've ever looked at the arcade, when you actually crash, you either get one or two sprites of smoke that appear. So if you hit dead on, you'll see two sprites of smoke appear. And that is what's happening there. So those are the sprite definitions: smoke west up, smoke west down. So that's on either side of the car. And these are little offset values I had to put in for where the smoke appears. That was just to correct some things. You know, those are all going to be pretty static stuff. So I've had to correct the X and Y value based on where the car hits, which was a bit of a pain. I was hoping I wouldn't have to I was hoping I could get away with that. And so yeah, so each frame, each of the 31 frames of the car, it just looks up into this table and then reacts accordingly. That's what it does, and I need to implement that for each of the different track codes, so they'll all have different values. And to be honest, it will be pretty damn boring, if I'm brutally honest. And you know, I'll probably need a good drink to get me through that one. So just to touch on, I think what I'll do is, as well as I'll just touch on the sprite stuff. So here we've got a definition of all the sprite numbers. So there's the tornado, the barriers, 100 points, and there's those little cloud puffs of smoke, and we just number them all the way up. And what we do is that at the start of the game, we just inject all of these sprites. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on the barrier that's running. So that's the new one that I put in, but it's still a little bit buggy. So just to make sure you know what I'm referring to, I'll just start it up again. And what I'm referring to is this thing here. So the barrier that's running there. So what happens is it takes the sprite number of the barrier, it puts the X and Y value in, and this is for where the animation should start. So if you look at the example on these two things here, these little bollards, they don't animate at the same time. As like they're offset from each other, so that allows me to offset into the sprite. So if I just look up the bollards, actually it's really quick to show you. So there you go. So I've got this one starts at the third frame, where this one starts at the first frame. So that's how that's working there. And what I do here is that I set, I guess you would call it an event handler for this sprite. And we're going to look into that. And then what this does is this just inserts it into the game. And I think I covered that last time. So what we're going to do, the interesting bit is this event handler, HDL barrier. So we're going to take a look at that. And what it does is, if you've ever done any object-oriented code, and to be fair, I haven't really done a lot of it, but I kind of know the principles of some of how it works. You've got like a constructor and a destructor. And what I've done, I've followed that example here. So when the first iteration of the sprite on the first frame, what it'll do is it'll call this constructor. And the idea is that when the sprite needs to disappear, it will call the destructor, which is here. Now, because this sprite never actually disappears from the game, it doesn't do anything. But when it is put into the game, what I need to do is I need to create some objects. So I need to create I need to put into the game whereabouts the collisions are. And that is what this code is doing here. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the X and Y value of the sprite, and then I'm putting it into the 8x8 coordinate system, because in the game, effectively, it's 512 by 384, which comes to 64 bytes by 48 bytes. and the collisions are working on those byte bases. And what I do is I then just calculate that, and I store it as an address in the sprite, in one of the sprite parameters. So when the game runs each frame, what's happening is, so this is for every frame the game runs, this is just setting up this is just a macro which is setting up the car constructs, so I can check each car. And what is happening is that I am running through and checking if a particular sprite, if a particular animation or a frame is shown, then I do a different thing. So if we look at the frames of animation in the barrier, so I'm just going to come down and look at the barrier, wherever it is gone. There you go. So we got 25, 28, 57, 60. Now we can look them up on here. So what we need to do is go to this one. So these are the barriers here. So if we click on the first one, we'll notice that is 25. Then the second one is 28. And then the third one, 57. Next one should be 60. And the next one is 89. And then that's essentially it. So those are the frame numbers. And what I'm doing is I'm just saying, right, for each of the frame numbers that appear, right, if it's frame number 25, for example, which is that one there, as you can see, then what I do is I jump to frame 1, and there is no collision that needs to happen, so I'm clearing all of the bytes in the collision table. However, if 28 is shown, which is this one here, then you can see the doors closed a little bit on each side. So what I'm doing is then I'm just writing number 5, or it ends up being a number 5, or I'm basically just saying the car will collide with this. So I'm writing a collision on the first byte, and I'm writing a collision on the last byte, which turns out to will be just the start there and just the end there, and everything in between, the 4 bytes in between, will be clear, so the car will go through it. And then frame 3, close it a bit more, and frame 4, close it a bit more after that. Frame 5, it's completely closed, and that is essentially it. And then I just write it in that way. That is a bug I've got there, so I need to take that out. Shouldn't have that. So there you go. So yeah, that's just a quick run through of the sprite engine, or an example of one of the sprite engines, sprite handlers, I should say. And yeah, that's essentially it. You know, each of the game's got other types of sprites as well. So just have a look. Maybe choose one of them destructors. Where are they? It's probably the spanner. So the spanner probably, yeah, there you go. So the spanner has a destructor. So when it's collected, essentially I call remove game sprite. So there you go. That's it. I hope you enjoyed the update. I think I've probably looking at about another 4 or 5 updates. The next one will be really tricky. I've really got to get to make sure that I've got this down to an absolute T. The collisions, and so there might not be an update for a couple of weeks now until I get this absolutely perfected. And there you go, I've caused it to crash. Well, not so much crash, but you know, the collisions are not quite right there. So yeah, once I get that done, I'll do another update, and the game will be much closer to being finished. And then I'll start on the bits of the loading routine and separating things out, and you know, should be a lot closer to the game being done. That is it. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode.